What's up guys, Joe Bennett, Redcon1 head trainer. Giving you some idea of what kind of grip width do you want to select when doing rows, particularly if the goal is training lats. So some of the confusion comes from the lats are one of the few muscles that actually don't pull in a straight line. So meaning you can literally see the start and the finish of your bicep. When they contract, it just pulls in a straight line. Your lat actually wraps around your rib cage. So your rib cage is what they call an anatomical pulley. So what I mean by that is when he takes his arm out, the upper arm, the lat basically attaches up here in the upper arm. And the origin of most of the lat fibers is from mid-back all the way down through some fascia that attaches kind of to the lower back into the hips. So if I literally drew a straight line from here to here, it would go through his body. So when you're thinking about pulling, one end of the lat to the other, your end point for a lot of rowing is going to be right at the side of your rib cage where that lat wraps around. So if you're going to choose a close grip handle and the goal is lats, you have to have a very specific range of motion. So I'm going to have him go ahead and grab it. So if he's going to row, he's really just pulling till his upper arm is right at this point here. So go ahead and start to pull. He's going to stop right about there. If he keeps pulling further back, so go ahead and pull further back, you'll see his elbows basically just start to travel out wide. So as soon as his elbows start to go away from his body, that lat is actually lengthening. It's not contracting. It's not staying in tight here. So when he's rowing, he's stopping right when he gets to the upper arm, his upper arm right to the side of the rib cage, and doesn't pull back any further. So go ahead and let it out. So just showing a couple reps here. Go ahead and just do a couple reps for me, chest tall. Not even quite that far back. So he's really thinking end goal is where that lat inserts right at the side of the rib cage. And again, if the goal is lat training, that's where it's going to end. If he goes further, he's just going to be getting a lot of rear delt, a lot of rhomboids, and some traps involved. So again, if you're a wider guy and your elbows start to flare apart, as you pull back further, you just have to know where your range of motion ends. Again, if lat training is the goal. All right, so the next variation I'm going to show you is basically going to be a wider shoulder width or slightly outside of shoulder width grip. If you're going to only pick one handle and only do one exercise for rowing if the goal was lats, I would pick something that allows your elbows to clearly travel at your side. Just for the reason that if you're close, you're going to have to end here. But if you're wider, you can keep pulling right around to your side. Even to the point where your elbows start to get past you, you can actually feel them wrapping around and pulling back in. So I'm going to have him go ahead and demo this. Now, as opposed to that very narrow grip where he basically has to end somewhere here, because it's wider and that lat can keep pulling around his rib cage, he can pull his elbows further back, and again, it kind of finishes with the feel of wrapping his elbows around his body. He does a couple reps. This is still about the end point. Again, the best goal that I always give people here is imagine a target right here. So right at the base of your lower back. So there's like a bit of a component of wrapping the arms around the body and pulling him down. And that's the way to finish with the lats, where if he just tried to get his elbow as far back as possible, so go ahead and take it as far back, the end of the motion there, the lat's not doing anything. That's going to be all rear delt to finish it. So that wider grip's going to allow you more range of motion, so you're still going to get a pretty good lengthened position out in that row, and it's going to allow you to come much closer to getting a fully contracted or fully shortened lat, as opposed to sticking with a narrow grip handle. So the last variation we're going to show here is a wide grip handle. Where would a wide grip really come in place as far as rowing is concerned? Well, if your goal is lat training, and you want that upper arm pulling into your rib cage, wrapping around your body to stay on your lat, it's really pretty impossible to do that with a wide grip. So what's the benefit of the wide grip? Well, if your goal is to train more rear delts, to train more upper back musculature, those rhomboids and traps, this is where a wider grip is going to come in place. So I'm going to have him go ahead and grab the bar, take that wider grip. And now his goal is, go ahead up nice and tall for me. He can drive his elbows as far back as he can. So one, driving his elbows far back is going to get a good contraction of that rear delt, but it's also going to allow him to pull his scapula further back and together. So basically it's pretty easy. Everything between his shoulders is what's doing the most work here. Again, rear delts, rhomboids, and traps. So that's really going to be the place for a wider grip. Wouldn't necessarily have a whole lot of benefit for lat training, but for upper back training, it's going to be a much better option.